Okay, welcome everyone to week 6. We are almost halfway through the semester, which is crazy. Super exciting, really good stuff. A couple of reminders to start out with. Please email me if you are turning in things late for any reason. Some of you are already in contact with me, so just keep me updated on what's going on in your lives as you feel necessary. It's been a rough week for everybody, I think. Rough week. So just reach out to me if you're having problems, you want to work on things together. Things are getting a little hard, I think, in keyboard harmony. So this, especially the first part of this video that you're submitting, is going to take a lot of practice, so get practicing as soon as you can. Something else I would like to ask is that if you have turned in assignments that haven't been graded, email me or Ben and ask us to grade those. You might have already and I might have missed it. I get so many emails every day. So don't worry about bugging me. If you ever feel like that's the case, that's not the case. So if you don't hear from me within 2 days or you haven't received a grade for anything more than a week old, please let me know right away. That's also a good chance for you to check in and make sure that all of your assignments are turned in that you think are turned in, because sometimes they don't work. Okay, so let's get started. So this week, we're working more on chord progressions. They're a little bit different than the chord progressions you've done before. So before we were doing something like 1, 4, 1, 5, 7, 1. This time we're doing 1, 2, 1, 5, 7, 1. So we're throwing in a 2 chord, which is minor. It's also a substitute for a 4 chord in most situations because they both serve the same function as leading to the dominant, which allows us to cadence however you choose to cadence. So these cadential patterns are good to know. The main thing with these is you want to be familiar with the patterns you're playing. There are some things that are a little bit easier about this. For example, for the 1 chord and the 2 chord, they're both in first inversion, and they just move up. So all these notes are parallel. They all move back down, and then, you also, for every single 1 and then 5, 7 chord you play, that middle note that you play is going to stay the same. The top note is going to come down, and the bottom note is going to go up. So being aware of those kind of patterns can be helpful. This is a really big deal, so listen up. So when you are doing your chord patterns where you're playing chords in both hands, you can do one hand at a time. But this is not the same case. Your left hand is providing the roots of the chords. Your right hand doesn't play anything in root position. So I'm going to require for these exercises that you play hands together so that we get the context of the bass motion with the right hand. So that means slowing it down to whatever is comfortable for you. But like I said last week, if it's too slow, where it's clear that sometimes if it's too slow, it can come across as you haven't practiced these, whether you have or not. So you want to make sure that you can play these at a comfortable enough tempo that we are convinced that you've done more than sight read them. And what Ben and I will do is, if we feel like you're playing too slow, or if it seems like you're sight reading all of these and it's not working as in it's not correct, we'll ask you to resubmit so that you get more chances to practice this. But the only way that you're going to find success with these is if you're doing them all the time. So every day to get used to these. So, okay, so that was a long spiel. I'll play through this and then I'll talk a little bit more. Just for right now, I'm slowing down to 80. If you have your piano marble open, you can follow along there, but I'm going to record my keyboard. Here we go. So starting on page 242, sorry.
1, 2, set, go.
Okay, so that was, just me playing through this. Now I want to talk about this a little bit more, some other things to watch out for. So we're moving through 2 levels of progression, right? We're going 1, 2, 1, 5, 7, 1, while at the same time we're moving from everything on C and then up a 4th and then up a 5th from C and then back to C. So we're kind of doing this like a large progression over a smaller progression, which we've done before. Your left hand is going to keep the same pattern similarly to how your right hand will. But what I find is easiest with this is I just keep my left hand in like a 5-finger position. So I have all 5 notes grouped together. And I just know that I'm going to go up a 4th and then up a step and then back down to the starting note. So those are kind of like the big picture ways to get around this. The other thing that might be helpful is it depends on how quickly you think of your key signatures. Because what I'm doing is I'm just thinking C major, no sharps or flats. F major, it has a B flat. G major, it has an F sharp. C major, no sharps or flats. That's what I'm thinking. If you're not as familiar with keys yet, something you could do, if you want, is because on the following pages, they're just giving you the progression. They're not giving you any of the chords. You could either write out these chords so that you're reading them. That's totally fine with me. Something else you could do is just write the general shape of what you're playing. So it's basically the same thing, but maybe will require a little bit less work if you want to do it this way. So here is the way I would maybe do it if I didn't want to write out every single note, like on staff paper. So instead what I would do, so we're in D major, and we're going 1, 2, 1, this is also a 6/4, 5, 7, 1. So what I would do is these have an F sharp on the bottom, right? So I'm just going to color that in. This is all white keys. Those circles are nice. Somebody must have changed my settings. And this, again, there's a black key on the bottom. So basically I'm just coloring black keys and white keys. And then I have to... This one has the black key on the top. And this has the black key on the bottom. So that's kind of like a shorthand way I would do this. For the left hand, I would do kind of the same thing. Just color in which ones are going to be black keys. So that's one way you could do this. I've never suggested that to someone before, so I don't know. Wait a second. What screen are you seeing? Can you see my iPad? I'll send a picture of this, or I'll attach a picture of this just in case that didn't go through, because it kind of looks on my end like it didn't. But that's one way you could do this. Or like I said, you could write out all the progressions. Yeah. The thing is, eventually you get to the point where there are, it's not as simple maybe to just think, okay, these are black keys and these are white keys. But it could still be helpful. The ones that I think are harder are any of the flat keys. Personally, for me, I just struggle more with flat keys. So I, instead of practicing the first one, which was easy for me just because I had a couple of accidentals, I would immediately jump to these harder ones after getting used to the pattern and then spend more time practicing these more difficult ones. The other thing is when you're practicing these, be aware of the mistakes you make. Because what I noticed when I was playing through these is I frequently would, especially when I was playing in the minor keys, I would frequently play the wrong 2 chord. Like I couldn't quite get there. So what I did, yeah, see that? Like I'm already off to a great start. What I was thinking is, okay, I just need to keep track of this note is going up a half step. This, I'll show you my hand closer. This is the one that I was frequently missing, is I needed to move up a half step to get here. So watch for, because more likely it's going to be you're missing 1 or 2 things, not that you're missing every single note every single time. Something else, just I'm going to keep going on things that I would watch for, and then you can practice these at your own pace. When I get ready, because we're in first inversion chords, so I'm sticking with D flat for right now, I always, just for me, because I don't like to think about every single note, I'm just thinking go up a third from D flat, and it helps that I'm really familiar with chords and my key signatures. So if you're not, maybe think of this as an opportunity to be more familiar with those things. Instead of, I have to do this to get through this, you could think, well, I need to know these things anyway, right? So even if you're not playing these progressions all the time, you'll at least be so familiar with key signatures and inversions that you won't have to think through that, spend as much time thinking through it. Okay, really quickly, I want to look at the minor keys. So they have, I think, 4 major and 4 minor. So this starts on part 6 is where the minor keys begin. It's the same progression. Something I'll point out that's a little bit incorrect here. So when you're using whatever kind of program they used, you can tell the difference between the capital and the lowercase just because, you know, this is what we're used to using. My suggestion is if whenever you're doing like theory or analysis that you be really clear by adding lines above and below major chords and then making it clear that minor chords are lowercase. Just from personal experience, I lost a lot of points in theory for not making that clear. So now that I pointed that out, there are mistakes in this minor progression. So this technically is supposed to be diminished, but they're having us play, right? Yeah, so this technically should be a diminished chord, but they're having us just play a minor chord. No. It's diminished. Okay, my bad, but they didn't write it. There should be a little circle here indicating diminished. All of these chords are minor except for the 5/7 chord. So if you're thinking key signatures, when you're doing this, you need to remember that in your 5/7 chord, you're going to have a raised leading tone. You gotta watch for that, because otherwise it's going to be incorrect and we'll mark you incorrect for that. But let me show you the way that I get through this, because like I said, I don't like to think about it too much. So I'm thinking A minor, no sharps or flats, and then there is a raised 7th note, the raised leading tone, which is a G sharp. But actually, instead of thinking that specifically, what I'm thinking is I just need to move from the top note my right hand is playing down a half step. And that gives me my 5/7 chord. And then we move this up a 4th, D minor. All right, and then move it up to E minor. And in every case, my top note goes down half a step. So that's what I'm doing to keep track of my 7th instead of thinking key signatures. I'll play through this whole thing one time in A minor set at 80, just so you can hear the whole progression.
1, 2, set, go.
Okay, so again, my suggestion for this is practice it a lot. Get used to the pattern. The way that I think most people are familiar with, or the way most people play these kind of exercises, is based less off of like knowledge, like theoretical knowledge, even though that's there. I think these are more motor skills. Like I think of the keys if I need to, but I rely more on just the shapes that I'm making with my hand to make those work. So I would say focus on that. But if you can't get one of these progressions, so like one of the pages down the way it is, just in that one key, it's going to be hard to do it in other keys because you're going to keep making the same mistakes. So make sure you can, if you can't play one of them correctly, you probably can't play any of them. Sorry, that was weird, and it probably didn't make a lot of sense. So there are a lot of these. Practice those every day, maybe 2 different keys a day, to keep yourself from getting overwhelmed. Okay, so we have some transposition on page 246. Whenever I transpose, the first thing I want to do is become familiar with what I'm playing by looking for patterns. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. I'm going to say it 1,000 more times. Patterns, patterns, patterns. So let's start with left hand. So left hand, let's start with the key. We're in F major, has 1 flat, and we start on an F major chord, so we know it's F major instead of D minor. So with our left hand, we have a root position 1 chord, 5-7 chord, a bunch of 1 chords, a couple of 5-7, 1, 5-7, 1, 1. This exact same shape, these are both the same shape, right? But it just moves up, everything up a step, keeping in mind that we have a B flat. This is our 2 chord, which is a substitute for a 4 chord, and then a 5-7. So 2s and 4s can be substituted because they both serve the same function, like I said, but they're also very close. So here's a 2 chord, here's a 4 chord. They have 2 shared pitches. So if you ever are playing something and you don't want to play a 4 chord, you could play a 2 chord instead. Anyway, okay, so being aware of that, you only play 3 different chords. I would watch for this one specifically because you only play it once. So being aware of that is helpful. The right hand. This is just a scale. It's just an F major scale from F to F and then walking back up in a 5-finger pattern motion. And then we do it again. After that, I'm just watching for intervals. So I go down a 3rd, down a 2nd, up a 4th. So I'm literally just looking for those kind of things. So I'll play this, and then I'll move on to the next one, and we'll apply that same stuff. Okay, again, slow down to 80. Here is moderato.
1, 2, set, go.
Okay, so that's the in the key moderato, in the key of F major. On the next page, we're transposing to G major for only the, for the whole thing. Yeah, sorry, that was weird. Okay, we're transposing to G major, which means in our left hand, we're going to play a 1 chord, root position, and then 5-7 chord. So we need to watch for that F sharp. Bunch of 1s, bunch of 5-7s, and then my 2 chord. No accidentals, it's just A, C, E, and then back to 5-7, and then 1. So the biggest difference when you're transposing from F major to G major for this piece is the fingering is going to change. So because we're playing an F major scale, remember that's kind of a weird one, it has different fingering. Since we're playing G major, we're going to switch to our regular fingering that we use all the time and start on a 5 and then cross to a 3. Okay, so I will play this one for you. If anybody wants like specific fingerings from me, let me know. If you can, I would suggest you print it out and write some fingerings, or if you have a way to do that, that's what I would do just to make this a little bit easier. So here is moderato transposed into G major.
1, 2, set, go.
Yeah, so watching for those patterns are going to be helpful. Okay, something I forgot to mention, when you play your chords, I would suggest that you get really used to releasing the key as soon as you're done playing so that you have time to move. The trick with these is you have to move as soon as you're done playing. This is going to be even more applicable here because your left hand accompaniment pattern is what we call root chord style, because we were playing the root and then the chord. It's also in a waltz style because we've got the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So waltz style, root chord style. Yeah, anyway. So this one, I want you to play hands together. Otherwise, it's just a melody or it's just a harmony. Actually, you know what? Oh, never mind. This is going to be much easier. Okay, so using the indicated chords create a 2-hand accompaniment. So it's the same thing, but we're just going to do it with 2 hands. So they will provide the melody, we will provide the harmony. Okay, that makes more sense and that's easier. So what I'm doing, they say to put a 5 on this G. I'm going to put a 2 because looking ahead, we're going to a D7. And I can play both G and D without moving my left hand. We're back to a G chord. We have an A minor over C, so maybe. Okay, new plan. Put finger number 1 on G. Use finger number 4 to play D. Use finger number 5 to play C. And now you don't have to move your hand. So all of that left hand stuff can be played without moving your hand. Okay, so we have a G. I'm going to get rid of the screen so you can watch my hands. So see how I have 1, 4, 5, 1. All of that fits really nicely in my hand. With my right hand, root position. Right? Not too bad. And then, I don't know, measure like 7. We go to a D7 chord. I'm just using the pattern that we've been practicing in other exercises. So it's closest hand position, not too far away. We go back to a G major chord. We stay on G major for a while. Oh, sorry. And then we go to an A minor over C. So that's our 2 chord. So my right hand is going to move from this position. Everything moves up 1. And my right hand will play the C. And then after that, we go back to G. Sorry, I keep doing that. And then a D7, and then a G. So only 3 different chords you need to know. This is kind of fast. I'm going to slow it down to like 120 instead of 180. I would suggest you keep track of, be aware of where your chords change. You'll probably hear it before you see it. But what I'm doing is I'm watching my melody while I'm playing my left hand. Because there's not even, or while I play the accompaniment, because there's not even anything for me to watch, really, except for like the stem, the like blank stems they have. So that's just what I would be doing, is watching the melody instead of counting measures. It's easier for me to keep track of that way. Okay, here we go. So starting with 1 on G in the bass and root position, G major chord in the right hand. Here is page 250.
1, set, go.
D7. Stay on that for the next phrase. And here we are back at G major. A minor coming up. Here it is. G major. D7. So I forgot that when you play on Piano Marvel, they have that like tracking bar to keep track of where you are. But I would still say, because if you're sight reading or if you're playing in an ensemble, you don't have a tracking bar. At least I never have. And so watching the melody can be really helpful. Okay, so that is all of the material for this week. Tons of chords, and then just a transposition and an accompaniment. Are there any questions? Okay, I think we're good on questions. I will end today just reminding you again, everybody, to practice these chord progressions every day. The more familiar you are, the easier they are to play and less stressful. And Ben and I will be asking for resubmissions if we're not impressed. That's not the right word. If we feel like you can do better, then that still doesn't sound great. If we ask you to resubmit, please resubmit, and we're happy to meet with you anytime you want to go over any materials to practice or to test over Zoom. And I will see you guys next week.